Today I'll be talking about experimenting with performing AES encryption and decryption on images. We're in a society today where data is becoming increasingly abundant, whether it be on social media, on our desktops, our laptops, our smartphones, our tablets. We have data everywhere, and there aren't many tools to prevent our data from being stolen. Yes, we have our passwords and we have our safeguards. We can lock our accounts and make sure that no one gets onto our computers. But then think about social media. For most people, if I'm friends with you or can find you on social media, I can then download your pictures on social media without your permission or you ever knowing. Why is this the case? Who knows? But how do we stop our data from being stolen? So, one manner that doesn't help us in the social media space but might help us in a different space is encryption. So, encryption would have helped us specifically in the iCloud leak of 2014. In this leak, several celebrities had their iCloud accounts hacked, several photos and documents were taken from said accounts and sold on the black market and then used to blackmail these celebrities. This isn't really good. It's ethically unsound, and we kind of really don't like it in the tech world, but there are black hat hackers. So, what could we do about that? Well, we could think about encrypting those images before we put them into the cloud. But why isn't the encryption of images widespread? Is it difficult to do? Why is this not acceptable? And then, how is the common consumer supposed to do it? How is the common consumer supposed to defend themselves? Most common consumers are not tech savvy, and they need simplistic tools to be able to do things like this. So, first, a few questions. Why haven't we seen encrypted images? I've seen encrypted data before, I've seen encrypted text, but I've never really seen encrypted images. Why isn't it widespread? Why isn't it just a tool or an app that's easy to do already? Is it a difficult process? Is it too tedious to do? And then, how do I even get an image into a workable form? For AES with text, we had to get it in a hex format, and then we even had to get that hex into 16-byte segments to be able to work it. How do we do this with an image? Do we have to break it down into pixel format? And then, what do pixels break it down into? I'm guessing we have to get the image down into a hex format of some sort to be able to alter it. Then, how useful would this be compared to the time it would take to do? If it takes me 3 to 4 minutes to encrypt one image, is that going to be worth it when I have megabytes, gigabytes, even terabytes of memory that I know people have terabytes and terabytes, even petabytes of pictures? If it takes me 3 to 5 minutes to do every image, it's going to take a lot of time. And then that leads us into our last question of, will this even be helpful? Do people even care? Is it worthwhile? Who knows? But we'll find out. So, after doing some snooping around, I found out that other researchers have done a ton of work in this area. And there are several versions of image encryption, but we'll talk about two today: ECB and CBC. ECB stands for Electronic Codebook, and CBC stands for Cipher Blockchaining. So, encrypting an image without the standard being pseudo-random doesn't really help us much. So if you look at the images on the bottom, we have Tux the Linux Penguin. So on the far left is the original image, and in the center image, that image was encrypted using ECB. So as you can see, on the left, Tux the Penguin looks like a penguin. In the middle, Tux the Penguin, even encrypted, kind of still looks like a penguin. You can kind of make out what the image is supposed to look like, and with a few context clues, you can put it together. But on the bright side, if you look at the far right, that image is the same image on the left, but encrypted with CBC. So there's hope. So, talking a little bit about my implementation, I started by porting my existing functionality into Swift and adding the decryption piece. This wasn't too difficult. The difficult part came in where I started taking images in and converting them into Swift's data format. This was difficult because Swift handles data in int form, so I had to do some fiddling. But after said fiddling, I got it into a hex form and was able to encrypt it. But, unfortunately, getting an uncorrupted JPEG back from Swift was difficult. Since I wasn't able to do this, I wasn't really able to get the files in a format that I could see the yield of my hard work. But discussion in future scope is that image encryption is very viable. It's possible, but it's very mechanically expensive. So encrypting images took 5 to 7 minutes for me, and sometimes 7 to 9 minutes. So that's not really helpful for us. Also, you can't just use any form of encryption, or for the most part, you'll just be altering colors and the image is still distinguishable. For me, at least, rebuilding the images was intricate and more work needed to be done on my part in that space. It doesn't seem like I can just alter the images and rebuild a JPEG. And then finally, Swift wasn't the most welcoming languages when it came to getting access to the bytes. This whole process might be a little easier in another language. Thank you. I hope you learned something. Have a nice day.